Welcome to episode 277 of Friars on the Farm. I'm Donovan, and with me is Roy.
Donovan, I feel like the Padres have lost their mojo.
They're totally lost their mojo, and this is not the team that we were expecting. Certainly isn't the team that showed up the first 2 weeks of the season. Once again, it's a long season, lots of games to play, but it just seems like the offense for the past now, almost 2 months now, has been sputtering, and at the very best, they are treading water.
Right. But I can't lose my faith. I still have to believe the talent is there. And there's no question that the talent is there. They just need to figure out how to put it together. So if that means that they slump through May and June and then they get hot in August and September, that's kind of what you want. They just need to have a chip in a chair when the time comes. But right now, man, it's not looking good. Not looking great. Last series, now they're in Philadelphia, and it's kind of hard to go into Philadelphia not playing well and hold your head high. Saw Jackson Merrill's crazy catch, insane catch, and he
Absolutely.
just pulls it down and comes trotting in. Like there's no hopping around. There's no
Right.
look of excitement. It's just, yeah, I
Right.
made a play. All right, let's go back in. We got work to do.
And I appreciate that from him. I appreciate him. I mean, it was a fantastic catch, and he'll probably be a top five come this Sunday at Plays of the Week. But to not, and for him to just get it done, come back. A lot of other players, a lot of young players would just be like all over it and celebrating and high-fiving. I thought it was a very mature moment for him. And say that stuff when it happens, when it really matters. A game in the last day of June, it doesn't matter, although it's a fantastic play. I appreciate that kind of self-awareness. I don't know if that's why he did it, but certainly for him to not get all excited and stoked. I loved what Matt Waldron said. You see Matt go, and you're like, I know what he just said. Oh my bleeping God.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this week we're here to talk about some exciting stuff on the minor league sides of the Padres organization. Leo Vries got selected to the Futures game, so that's exciting. And then there's been some great news some noise about Braden Nett. Couple
Finally.
articles, couple of attention. He's starting to draw some attention, so we're excited. Friend of the podcast. We've got our affiliate rundown to take you through.
Absolutely. To go back to the Padres real quick, I was at work and one of my customers, student is a big Giants fan, and he's like, "Man, we're horrible right now." I'm like, "Look, dude, we're the National League West is going to be a nightmare. It is going to be Thunderdome, and with both teams aren't playing well. I told them that the Padres aren't playing well. We talked about the Rafael Devers trade, which was fantastic, but like." This happens, and hopefully either one of these teams are going to come out of it and make a run, like you said before. They'll find it. The talent is there. They just got to put it together.
Well, a month ago we were talking about that these teams are going to duke each other out, and maybe it's going to be two of the National League West teams in the postseason. But right now, if the season ended today, none of them would be in it. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping that they don't beat each other up so much that they're all left on the outside looking in.
Yeah. Hey, before we absolutely. So before we get going, we're still selling the Zamo shirt. I wore it the other day. You guys, we are raising money for the Child Crisis Center of El Paso. It's an emergency shelter. It's an emergency shelter that relies solely on the generosity of the community support. So we're selling this shirt. It's online. I'll post the link in the show credits, and you can go online there. They're selling it in the team store in El Paso. So it's being sold. You guys, it's a really cool shirt. So do that. And that's what we're doing for the El Paso Child Crisis Center.
All right, so we have a little bit of major league news, or major league adjacent news, I suppose you could say. So today's starting pitcher is Matt Waldron, making his season debut. So congratulations to Matt, finally coming back off the injured list and a little optional assignment with El Paso. Um, you know, 4 runs through 5 innings pitched today. He's a knuckleballer. You
Right.
kind of have to have your patience with that. But he was really good last year, and the Padres need depth, pitching depth. Sean Reynolds was optioned to make room for him. Logan Gillespie, they announced today that he has come off the injured list, but they designated him for assignment. He's out of options, so it's kind of just a part of the business. He was kind of always on the fringe of the roster anyway.
Right.
But the reason for Waldron coming up, I think, is because of Ryan Bergert going to the injured list. He took a line drive right up. It looked to me like it went off his forearm.
Yeah.
I saw people saying the elbow area, but X-rays were negative, so there's no fracture. They just didn't want him trying to pitch through while he's recovering from what they're probably calling some kind of contusion. So he hit the injured list. Sean Reynolds came back up real quick after being optioned because you can come back from an option if you're taking the place of somebody who's going on the injured list. So
Yep.
he was up to give the bullpen a little bit of depth. And then once the spot in the rotation came back up, now it's Matt Waldron's turn.
Absolutely. And then go ahead. You can say it.
Yeah, Jason Hayward. They released Jason Hayward. Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that, to be honest. I guess they've been impressed enough by what Gavin Sheets has been doing in left field with the glove
Yeah.
that they felt comfortable enough letting him go, that they can roll with Tyler Wade and the other guys, Bryce Johnson, maybe Brandon Lockridge when he comes back up, taking
Brooks.
that. Yeah, Trenton Brooks in a spot too. But I mean, a month ago when we saw Gavin Sheets out there, he was kind of a mess in left field, but he's shown some improvement.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to get to the stuff at the fringe. He doesn't have the range. He doesn't have the crazy athleticism, but he's at least playing a competent left field now.
Well, I think they're trading the offense for the defense. Absolutely. And you can get, I mean, he's not a speedster by any stretch of the imagination. But he's playing. If he can learn routes, he can take better first steps. That's stuff you can learn and adjust to. And you're right. He just needs to catch the ball that's hit to him, and the occasional one in the gap, or the little dribbler in between the infield and the outfield. But it's the offense they really have him in for, and that really makes up for any deficiencies that you have from the defense. And if it's a minus 1 or 2 runs saved, with him on the negative side, the offense just really it's much more important than diving and catching stuff in the gap, because that's what you got Jackson Merrill for.
Right. It does help that you've got Jackson Merrill, who plays borderline Gold Glove defense in center field already in his second year out there, and then Platinum Glove Tatis playing, looking like himself again in right field. So you can shade those guys over a little bit, and cover a little bit of the territory you'd expect an elite left fielder to cover.
Absolutely. And to go back to Matt Waldron, I was thinking about this today. It is steamy right now in Philadelphia. And I don't know if it's the thick air of just sweating. I mean, everyone's just sweating bullets. That could affect the grip. I mean, he sailed a couple pitches, and that ball seems to be getting away from him a little bit more often than it would when we were a little more drier climate. So I think that could be really affecting him. And they'll probably take that into account come next time around.
Right. And I also don't feel great about Martin Maldonado or Elias Diaz behind the plate with him. Like, neither of them at this age, I'm with my gray hairs here, at their advanced age, they're not elite blockers. And so being able to respond to those, because the knuckleball is going to go wherever it wants to go. It's hard enough to keep in front of you.
It's funny because when that happens, when Campy was catching him with the big league team, and the ball goes by, it's like, oh, see, there it is. His defense is horrible. When you can't, it's like catching a butterfly with a tennis racket, But with Maldonado and Diaz, or Maldonado, it's it seems to be fine. 2 wild pitches really early in that game are a little bit of a concern, but it's a knuckleball, and he has to pitch. It's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yep. Well, you gotta play with what you got.
Absolutely. And then the Jason Hayward thing, just everyone was praying for that to happen. So I guess prayers do work. Are the obvious does happen on occasion, because how many times in the past has Preller picked up these guys, and usually bench piece or just a fill spot, and they stay on the roster way too long. And to see him designated, there's probably a conversation there that they've had with him, and I'm sure he'll get another opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was surprised to see that they moved on as quickly as they did. I think he's started to learn a little bit more from these. Like I think back to Ian Kinsler that stuck around for a long time when we were all looking at him like pretty clear this guy's cooked.
Yeah.
But then Robinson Cano, he moved on real quick from Robinson Cano.
Yeah.
So I think Preller's kind of starting to learn a little bit with time that they're going to show you who they are.
Right.
And so Hayward, he can still go play pretty good left field, but the bat just wasn't playing.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not like you have somebody down there in AAA that's just pounding the door down and he's blocking him. Like I felt with Kinsler, I want to say that was when Luis Urias was still around. And so they signed him like, well, wait, we already have a second baseman that should be on the way up. And now this guy's blocking him. Where the only person Hayward could arguably be blocking is Tirso Ornelas. And at this point, I don't think the organization is high on
Tirso.
Ornelas as a major league option today. That may change in the next couple of weeks, month. Who knows if Tirso shorts something, but right now, and what you see is what you get.
Yeah, and with Lockridge and Wade, those guys, they're getting their cup of coffee, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. And if those guys stick, there's much more upside with Lockridge and Wade. They, Wade can bunt and Lockridge can run and play serviceable outfield because he's got wheels. So with Tirso, his big tool is going to have to be his bat, and when that's not happening, they're going to have to look for other options.
Right. Well, when it comes to guys like Wade and Lockridge and Bryce Johnson, there's room on the roster for two of those guys.
Yeah.
For an infielder and an outfielder. Really, that's about it. And you don't want them seeing the field a whole lot outside of those scripted situations where you want the defensive specialist, the pinch runner. You don't want those guys taking a lot of starts.
Yeah.
And so right now, Gavin Sheets is showing durability. He's showing the ability to be able to play decent left field. So as long as he's still out there and doing okay, I really do have a feeling that that's going to be the first move we see, either a catcher or a left fielder. Preller's got to find something. But
pitching.
I mean, yeah, and then there's always pitching. You always need pitching. I mean, it's a little fresh for us watching Robert Suarez blow another save. He's been really good, but then he's also blown a couple of spectacular saves, and it's just been gut punch moments.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's move on to some great news. And that great news from the MILB Minute is Leodalis de Vries has been named to the Futures game in Atlanta this year. Great job for El Mutante. 18 years old. I keep forgetting, as I don't even have him on the agenda this episode. And he's had some pretty good hits the long single that he hit to walk off the game early this week. I was watching that game. He hit it so well. I'm like, oh, that's a walk-off bomb. I even texted him. I even put on X like, well, it's a bomb. Oh no, it was a single because he hit the wall, and all he had to do was jog to first base. But congratulations on him to being named 18 years old. And once again, to go back to that, you keep forgetting he's 18 years old. So yeah, sure, he's hitting 210 in high A. He's a senior in high school. At best, he's a freshman in college. So playing against, I would say all-star caliber college pitchers, if not better, when it comes to the level of high A competition. But MLB.com ranks de Vries as the number 3 prospect in baseball and the top prospect in the San Diego system. The 18-year-old switch hitting prospect is the youngest player in high A. Once again, he can barely buy a pack of cigarettes, if that's even a thing these days. The Azua Dominican Republic native started off the season red hot, being named the Midwest League Players of the Month for April after back-to-back Player of the Week nods to end the month. He became just the 5th TinCap player to win the Player of the Month since the Midwest League began issuing the award back in 2013. That's huge. He ended that month
with his 243 average. It's still a 109 weighted runs created plus. So he's still 10% better than the average player in that league as the youngest player in the league.
Right.
Right. But what we've seen is a couple of hot stretches, and the hot stretches is what shows the potential.
Yeah.
That's what you dream on. And you know that as he continues, the consistency is going to come.
Yeah, and the body's going to grow. They all can't be Wander Franco. He was just smoking the ball all the way through the minor leagues, and that's a bad name to come up with. But that's the most recent kid to do incredibly well at a really young age. Um,
That's some crazy timing too, considering that the his trial sentencing just happened.
yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. Whoops. Wow. That just man. Edit that. Edit that part out. Anyways, back to DeVries. So he ended that month of April.
Wander Franco, the player, not Wander Franco, the human being, which
Right.
nobody wants to follow that example.
Right. So anyways, that April he hit 14 for 29, a 483, 543, and a 1.06 with four doubles, two triples. Across 19 games, DeVries led the Midwest League in slugging, OPS, and while tied for the league in triples with three, the switch hitter also ranked in third in extra bases with 12. Total bases with 45 and an average of 306, while being tied for fifth in RBIs 19 and tied for seventh in home runs. This is back in April. His signature moment this year was on the road in Lansing. He went 5 for 5 with a single, a double, triple, a sac fly, and two home runs, completing just the third cycle in franchise history in a 15 for 14 win. He also delivered a go-ahead two-run triple in the top of the ninth inning. So that was a kid, once again, a senior in high school playing against highly advanced competition for that age group. So congratulations to him. It's going to be seen. He'll probably get a couple innings, maybe second. I don't think he might not start. Maybe he will, but he's certainly going to get a good look and at least a couple at bats there. So that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's always fun when you see one of our guys out there
Yeah.
in one of those showcase games.
Yeah.
So next on our list here, I've got some articles about Braden Nett. He's finally drawing some noise on the national scale. So Baseball America, Jeff Pontus put out this article, 10 MLB pitching prospects with standout data in June. So about Braden, right-handed pitcher for the Padres, an undrafted free agent signed in 2022 out of St. Charles, Missouri. He's proven to be an excellent find in his 3 years since turning pro. After breaking out in 2024 with 20 appearances between high A and double A, he returned to double A to begin the season and has pitched well. He currently owns a 5-3 record with a 3.23 ERA, 3.48 FIP, and 73 strikeouts to 25 walks across 61 and a third innings pitched. The walks, I've noticed that he's cut his walk down rate. He's pretty much halved his walk rate each year he's been a pro so far. So, last year, does he have the control? Can he command his pitches? Well, this year, he's starting to show you that he really can. So in June, Nett made 4 starts, going 3-0 while allowing just 3 earned runs across 22 and a third innings. He tallied 28 strikeouts to 4 walks and avoided hard contact to the tune of just 1 home run allowed. Opposing hitters batted .212 against him, which is no small feat in the hitter-friendly Texas League. He calls it the hitter-friendly Texas League. It's maybe on average it's hitter friendly, but you've got some parks like the Wolf that are pitcher friendly. Right. You've got some parks like Amarillo that are extremely hitter friendly. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
I think really, when I think of the Texas League, it's the weather. It's the weather. It's hot, it's dry, so the ball is fast on the ground and it flies in the air. So hitter friendly. When I think of Texas League, I think, God, yeah, it's hot and it's hitter friendly because the ball it's dry and the ball flies.
Yeah, when the wind starts blowing, good luck.
Yeah. Well, hey, you may notice that we're both I'm still wearing a black shirt, but Roy's wearing a different shirt. It's because right in the middle of our episode yesterday, my electricity went out. And so that killed the night. So we're back here. It's the next day. We were just getting into the Mad Friars interview that Clark Farthenhold had with Braden Nett this last couple of weeks ago. But real quick before we get going, it's going to be old news by the time we get it, but it's new news to us. What's the breaking news, Roy?
The Padres are selecting the contract of Eduardo Nunez.
Nice.
I've been telling you all year, this guy might be the next Jeremiah Estrada. Nasty right-hander. He's got some filthy, filthy stuff. Command issues, but apparently they think that he's straightened out the command issues enough to earn a shot. So congratulations, Eduardo Nunez.
Absolutely. And then also from the Complex League, Humberto Cruz will make a start tonight, which is Tuesday, for the Lake Elsinore Storm.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's always a nice graduation, getting away from the complex.
Absolutely. An absolute searing heat to pretty hot.
Oh my God. I looked yesterday, it was 112 degrees out there. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And well, so let the Humberto Cruz in the affiliate ball time start. I'm so stoked for that. We've been talking about it for so long. But let's get back to this interview with Braden Nett.
Okay, so Matt Friars, Clark Farrenhold interviewed Braden Nett, and it tied in really nicely with the Baseball America article that we were just talking about 30 seconds to you all, but yesterday to us. So anyway, um, he was talking about his pitch mix and how things have changed. And so Braden says, quote, it's definitely one of those things where I look back at the progress where I was, where I started to where I am now. It's cool to look back and think, yeah, I've earned this. I've been putting in the work. And then he goes on, in big league camp this spring, Ruben Niebla actually came up to me and said, we want you to take a break from the splitter. It was kind of inconsistent. I was sort of disappointed about it, so I brought up the idea of a kick change after I saw a video of it on Instagram. It sort of clicked in my head, and I asked if I could play around with it. They said yes. I started messing around with it in the middle of the spring, and it looked like an actual pitch, so I went with it. It's pretty cool to be able to start using the pitch that quickly, just kind of goof around with it, and then boom, right into the mix. So messing around with the pitch soon led to using it incredibly effectively in game action. This is Clark writing now. The right-hander prides himself on his ability to deploy an ever-evolving arsenal. It's a trait that has undoubtedly assisted in his rapid development as a pitcher. Quote, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I have the ability to pick up and learn pitches pretty easily. In recent start, Nett's curveball, which he's once seldom used in favor of a sweeper, has seen a noticeable increase in usage. And I thought the part of this was interesting here. I've always had my curveball, but in my mind, my sweeper was better. Recently, though, the sweeper kind of fell apart. And right here, it was getting inconsistent, dropping my arm slot a little bit and kind of messing up my other pitches, Nett said. So I took a step back from it and was just embracing that curveball. It's not a true six. It has a bit of that sweep action. I think it works better with my arsenal and arm slot. I don't have to drop it and think cross body fire. It's just more natural. I thought that was interesting that he recognized that one pitch was kind of affecting the other one and maybe having to alter his delivery to make one pitch work. You can kind of be giving something away by doing that.
Absolutely. I think also that just the evolution of this kid, when we talk to him, he's like, yeah, I throw hard and it's working.
Yeah.
And he literally, and I say this a lot, he's a fresh arm. He is new, almost absolutely new to pitching. So for him, for him to notice his stuff and pick it up and mature so quickly, I think it just rises his stock even more. When you hear him talk about that stuff from where he was back when we talked to him, granted it was 2 years ago, it is just a world away from where he is now. Getting noticed in the national write-ups, certainly on social media, he is a darting to get the next called up, although the Eduardo Nunez is a bullpen guy. Certainly we'll see how this season's going to go because he has pitched. This is the most he's ever pitched. So I don't see him going, to the major leagues this year. But, who knows? But definitely going into spring training, get the major league invite, get a real good look, maybe even start in AAA. I wouldn't be surprised if it did start in AAA. And go from there. But it's just a meteoric rise for him. And it's once again, we always talk about this, the talent that brothers guys find, particularly with the undrafted free agent. I know that the draft now has gone, has gotten shorter, but finding these undrafted free agents, these little diamonds in the rough, it's been amazing.
It really has. It really has. I think the workload we're going to see is going to kind of follow what Jagger Haynes did a little bit last year. We kept waiting. We're watching okay, he's at 90, he's at 100, he's at 120 innings. And they just let him go until he made it through all the way through the end of the season. I don't think that Braden Nett necessarily is going to be pitching all the way deep into August, September.
Right.
But I think we'll be surprised how many, they've been ramping guys up more aggressively than we expect them to. And I think that's because they're not just monitoring what they're doing in games, but also their side work, their bullpens, how many pitches they're throwing everywhere, not just in games.
Absolutely. The player will, the game will tell you how far he's come. With the Haynes, he just kept pitching. The velocity didn't drop. He was still balancing kind of control issues, but the game will tell you when he's ready to take it back. And, it being a undrafted free agent and meteoric rise, I would definitely think they're going to keep him, not a tight leash, but at least going to keep a sharp eye on him for any kind of break in velocity or any arm fatigue or anything like that. But yeah, he could easily double his innings this year and not and it'd be okay. It just
Right.
depends on different guy, different pitcher. Every situation is a little different. But I like what it says here for many pitchers. For many young pitchers, the idea of adding to the arsenal can be intimidating. For Net, some of his greatest enjoyment on baseball field comes when he's tinkering. Like, not many guys tinker. I think my most joy of baseball comes from when I am trying to master as many pitches as possible. To be honest, I really like bringing that into the game. There's just nothing like that feeling of going into a game with a new pitch for the first time and see it work. Like, you got another tool in the tool belt. No one knows about it. And people, you see the batter, he didn't throw that last time I saw him, and it worked.
Yeah, there's a little bit of fearlessness to that too.
Yeah.
So last year he pitched 65 innings in affiliated ball, and he went down to Puerto Rico and threw another 17 innings. That adds up to just over 80 innings. It wouldn't surprise me to see him go above 130, like somewhere in that 130 to 150 range this year, which is a pretty full load of work for most minor league pitchers.
Yeah, absolutely. Super stoked for him. He's such a great kid. And the work that he's putting in now, like you said, he's putting in the work and it's showing in spades. And that's great to see. It's funny because Clark Fahrenhold did go on Ben and Woods the other day, our local radio station. And he talked about just, the plethora of talent that we have. Like we're not quite a top 10 minor league system, but there's plenty of talent here that I don't think is recognized enough, or isn't as flashy as other organizations have in their top draft picks. But we have a lot of these young guys that are undrafted, that are higher, deeper rounds, third day guys that are absolutely performing their butts off. And, that doesn't get noticed.
Well, the scouts out there notice that, the coaches notice that.
Yeah.
And we see that as they move their way up. Maybe they're not, making these top 100 lists yet, but they're coming.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to take a little break here. We've got the affiliate rundown right around the corner.
3, 2. All right, let's get into the affiliate rundown. Let's start in Lake Elsinore, painting the corners. Dude, Boston Bateman, he's just a monster right now. And, he's maybe first year, full season, maybe he'll make it up to high A, but he is absolutely banging on the door to get the call to go up to Fort Wayne. So he continued in his recent run of dominance as he worked 5 innings Thursday. The 19-year-old Southpaw allowed 2 runs on 6 hits, walked 1, and struck out a career-high 9 batters. Bateman's fastball is 94 and 96 and topped out at 97, and he's a big boy, so that ball's coming in hot. Bateman is clear to become more comfortable with his slider. The offering remains in the high 80s with solid depth. Since May 23rd, the big lefty has made 6 starts. In the last 29 and 2/3 of an inning, he owns a 2.47 ERA and a 28.4% strikeout rate. Third of the strikeouts he's getting from the guys he's facing. Among the California League pitchers with a minimum of 50 innings he's pitched, he's got a 3.30 FIP and a 27% strikeout rate. So he's doing really well. And moving on to Adam Conrad, the 22-year-old righty from North Carolina has allowed only 3 earned runs and 31 plus innings, good for a 0.85 ERA. He has held opponents to just 153 average, but has skirted trouble all year by walking 23. So that's that we talk about all the time. Strikeouts are good, walkouts bad, walks are bad, but there's plenty to like there. If it was just giving up bombs and high ERA, they can work with the walks. They can. That's development.
Right. But also the ability to have some traffic on the bases and still be able to manage it and get out of it clean. There's a skill in that.
Yeah, absolutely. That bearing down, like refocusing, but it's just maintaining that focus in arm slot and mechanics to kind of clean up the walks. All right. So righty Cannon Kep dominated for 4 innings before the Modesto Nuts, who I think they're in their Modesto Nuts. I think on the last year of their contract with Modesto. I do not think they're playing next year. I think that's the case because I think they're moving to Rancho Cucamonga, and then the Dodgers Cucamonga, the Quakes, they're moving to Ontario in a brand new facility.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We talked about that before the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, good call on the shuffle.
Yeah, it's a little tough it's tough to see the California League move around like that. But anyways, Kemp had a no hitter through 4 innings, but allowed an RBI single in the fifth. The Texas native went out for the sixth, but the Nuts touched him for a pair of hits and a sacrifice fly before he was yanked. Overall, the numbers aren't overly impressive. He was charged with 3 earned runs on 5 1/3 innings, but he looked strong for most of his outing. Kemp struck out 6 without allowing a walk. Since joining the Storm 2 weeks ago, the big righty has pitched at least 5 innings in each of his last 3 outings. You see that a lot in the minor leagues. Guys just dominate the first time through the through the lineup, and something about the fourth or fifth inning where it just, I don't know if it's fatigue or lack of focus or the hitters are making the adjustments. A lot of times it just kind of unravels from there. The wheels kind of fall off.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens. We um anyway, I was going to point out that Boston Bateman and Cannon Kemp were both drafted out of high school. Bateman from last year,
Yep.
Kemp back in 23. Kemp's had some health issues that have kept him off the field the last couple of years. So it's great to see him on the mound at all.
Yeah.
So great for him. But the difference between them and Adam Conrad. So Conrad is a college draftee, and so he's more likely to move a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
I think there's something to just learning how to be a pro, be out on your own, be away from home, and all this stuff. They're a little slower to move the guys that are straight out of high school, unless they're, wonderkind, Ethan Salas, Leo Vries, a different kind of category. So I'd be surprised if they move Bateman up this year. I think they'd probably just let him do his thing this year and then go into the offseason, give him some homework, and then next year see him move.
Absolutely. And with Humberto Cruz finally making it up there, you got all the young guys there, and it's, Will Varmette moved up. Also, that's what happened. Everyone there was some shuffling today. So Will Varmette went up to Fort Wayne. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So keeping it going on the screws, Lamar King Jr. Speaking of guys that need to move up sometime soon, he has a 9-game hitting streak with 3 more hits Saturday as he pushed his OPS for the month to 1.109. After playing in 25 games in his first 2 years in the system and 62 last season, the 21-year-old is finally getting an opportunity to show what he can do when healthy. He's caught 36 games this year. Remember, before the season, I was going to keep an eye on that because last year he was coming off a shoulder injury, so it was DH only. He had 20 starts at first base and 3 as designated hitter. And then Thursday, after a very brief cool down over the last week plus, Victor Figueroa seems to have caught fire once again. The big 6'5" first baseman went 3 for 4 with a pair of home runs and a double to drive in 3. Figueroa's home run at the bottom of the 6th posted an exit velocity of 109 miles an hour. You don't see that in the Cal League. You don't see that in low A. Among Cal League hitters who've come to the plate at least 90 times, his 924 OPS and 556 slugging percentage rank 5th and 4th, respectively, in the California League. For as good as he's been this season, Figueroa's 29.7% whiff rate is a bit higher than you like. I feel like there's kind of a new generation of hitter. The philosophies on hitting have changed. Strikeouts aren't as bad a thing as they used to be. I still don't like seeing strikeouts.
Right.
I love watching somebody like Luis Arraez is just going to go out there and battle out and strike out like 2% of the time. But I mean, Figueroa draws a lot of walks. When he hits the ball, he hits it with authority. So he's not up there looking for contact. He's trying to drive the ball, find the gaps, do some damage. But if they're not going to give him anything to hit, he's going to spit on it and he's going to take his base. He's the kind of he fits that slot of first base only DH that is hard to move unless there's huge power.
Right.
But so far the hit tool seems to be holding up. It's just a matter of, will he hit high A? Will he hit double A? Right now, I have no doubt that he'll go up to Fort Wayne and start raking.
Yeah.
Once the break happens, once the All-Star break is over, you're going to see a bunch of guys move up. I think he's going to be one of them. The real test is going to be double A for him.
Absolutely. And with Figueroa, of course, you don't want to see a 30% strikeout rate, and they won't move him until that gets better. But he has much more power over contact. So he is, if he can maybe not sell out so much for power and cut down that strike rate, maybe it's pitch recognition, maybe it's just, he knows he can hit the ball far, so he's swinging at whatever he can. that's that stuff he can figure out here in A ball, and then as he moves up, it'll just get better because he the power he's the Adam Dunn, Sean Casey type guy where it's either a tank or or a strikeout. There's still places for those guys in the big leagues, but not in the minors. They need to hit for average a little bit more. I think in the minors in the 29%. If he gets down to like 20, he drops to like 10%. I think and maybe ups the walks a little bit. I think he can he can definitely be someone that you can look at as a future major leaguer. But another one of these guys are just undrafted free agent out of JUCO and like what are they doing in Florida? But besides immigrant, yeah, they their JUCO there just seems to be huge and a plethora of talent there. So, yeah, let's go on to the next one right here.
You raise a good point though about it made me think about the pitching in the California League. So if he's up there hunting fastballs, maybe he's whiffing on some sliders and they're not picking up that he's not recognizing the spin or something like that, but he can go up there and punish mistake fastballs, and there's mistake fastballs all over the place in the
Yeah,
California League.
yeah.
And so there may be something that he's exploiting that doesn't quite exist in the upper levels, but I guess that remains to be seen. So on Saturday, Victor had two more doubles, drew a walk, moving his OPS back up to 930. His average has fallen off this month, but he's still slugging 567 with more walks than strikeouts. So more walks than strikeouts. I mean, he's striking out 20+% of the time, but he's still walking almost 20% of the time.
Yeah.
I there's something to that.
Yeah.
So then, speaking of big people, Zach Evans opened the scoring with the 3-run homer. The Padres' 9th-round pick out of Division II, Lenoir Rhine University, leads the team with 79 hits. Despite a 6'4" frame, the Buffalo native has only 17 extra base hits for a 372 slugging percentage on the year. I think that's a matter of getting comfortable and getting. I've watched him in batting practice and spring training, and the dude has power. Like, it is in there. It's just a matter of getting to it in game situations. That takes a little bit of time for some guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny with Figueroa and all these doubles. He's a big human being. Like if he was a little bit lighter, a little bit quicker, I'm sure he would lead the league in triples because the California Lake Elsinore, the Diamond, has big gaps. And you hit it to that fence there, faster kid's going to make it to third. He's probably just stopping at second, going, all right, that's it. That's good enough for me.
Speaking of size, go take a look at the Lake Elsinore Storm's roster, and they've got size for days. You look down at Boston Bateman, 6'8", but like 6'8", 6'7". There's a couple guys 6'6". There's a whole bunch of guys that are 6'4", 6'5". Like just a bunch of sequoias on that team. So you could go down there and interview them. I'd be down there like this, like,
right.
What do you think of it? What adjustments have you made so far?
All right, so let's move on to Fort Wayne and pain in the corners. Fort Wayne, Eric Yost, like this kid has not had a bad. I can't remember the last time he had a bad outing. He had a strong start with Eric Yost and a stellar pitching performance from Fernando Sanchez and Garrett Hawkins in relief. Yost, 22, gave up a run on a pair of doubles in the first inning, but allowed no further damage in the 5 2/3 innings. The unheralded righty has gone at least 5 innings in each of his last 9 starts, and at 68 2/3 innings on the year, has thrown nearly 40% more innings than any other TinCap. His 2.36 ERA is second among qualified starters in the Midwest League. After allowing 7 runs in the first 10 innings of the year, Hawkins has put together a stretch of 22 scoreless innings. The 25-year-old has transitioned to a late inning relief role coming off Tommy John surgery. He has struck out 28 against just 5 walks during that stretch of dominance, holding opponents to an average of .091. The 6'5", 230 right-hander should be in line to move up to Double-A shortly.
So this is Eric Yost's third year in the Padres organization. It's also his third year spending time in Fort Wayne. But I really think this year he's shown that he's taken that next step. I think he's deserved a promotion. I think a midseason promotion is in the cards for him.
Yeah, definitely. And these guys, development isn't linear. A wide variety of things are happening to each and every player. So he has figured it out in high A, and the next challenge is to get him up over to San Antonio. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. So moving on the screws, after struggling the first 2 months of the season, 24-year-old Ethan Long has found his power stroke in June. Former ASU star had 2 hits, a double, and his 5th homer of the year. Long hit just 2 in April and May combined, but he already has 3 homers in the month. And then in 9 games this month, catcher Oswaldo Linares has reached base in 12 of his last 13 games and 14 of his last 16 since the start of May. After going 1 for 22 to begin the year, Linares is batting .289 since, with 5 extra base hits, 7 walks, and 10 RBIs in 15 games played. Last Thursday, Linares cracked his first high home run, a no-doubt shot at Dayton.
I'm so glad to see him starting to do well. He spent a lot of time the last 2 seasons in Elsinore. It's one of those guys you really root for.
Yeah, I mean, you start to see these names often. You see them not moving a whole lot, and you kind of wonder, are they going to come back? So when I see spring trainings rolling around and I start to see the familiar names, I'm happy to see some of these guys still in the organization.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on to San Antonio, painting the corners, and it's a lone start of the week. In his lone start of the week, Henry Baez looked as dominant as he has all season for the Missions. It's funny. He even as the season has progressed, and I know he's pitching really well, so maybe the perspective is different, but he's starting to look like a pitcher. Like he's starting to fill out into his body, and I'm like, God, is that Baez? I turned it on the other day, and I was like, shit, that's Baez. Look at, I don't know if it's a new uniform or the pants are tighter, but starting to fill out that body a little bit.
I was going to say, maybe you got some baggier pants.
Right. But the 24-year-old has worked 5 2/3 innings, allowing just 2 hits and 1 walk while matching his career high with 10 strikeouts. Baez collected a season high 14 swing and misses with a sinker that sat 94-95 for most of the evening and topped out at 98. The pitch was getting anywhere from 11 to 17 inches of horizontal break. Baez's changeup sat in the mid-80s and showcased good late arm side fade. The stellar outing lowered his ERA to a league-leading 2.06 on the season. Over his last 38 innings, Baez allowed just 3 runs. So the kid, he has that power fastball, and so it plays off really well with any of the off-speed and breaking stuff.
I just pulled that start. He made 91 pitches in that start, so it's a pretty full mode. He's fully ramped up at this point.
Yeah.
And he's never mind. I'm thinking of Francis Pena. I always get him confused with Francis Pena. He's not on the 40 man, but he's somebody maybe keep an eye on. Okay, so on the screws, in a quiet week I got some good news and some bad news on the Francisco Acuna front. In a quiet week for the Missions offense, Francisco Acuna had a productive week at the plate with a 6 for 19 performance, featured a pair of doubles. The shortstop, who provided a spark at the top of the Missions lineup all week, drew 6 walks, got hit by a pitch, pushing his on-base percentage for the week up to .500. As a whole, he's been excellent in 18 games this month, posting an .858 OPS, good for a .159 WRC plus, and a .405 WOBA. That's the good news. The bad news, the Missions got their only, this is later on, the Missions got their only run of the game on a 1-out homer from Francisco Acuna in the first inning. The blast was a 25-year-old infielder's 7th of the year, setting a new career high. Unfortunately, in the bottom of the frame, while planting to make a throw to get an out at first base, Acuna's knee buckled and he collapsed in obvious pain. He was on the ground for nearly 5 minutes before a cart took him off the field. The shortstop has already been to the plate 277 times this year, more than in any of his first 7 campaigns in the Pirates organization. All of us at Mad Friars and us at Friars on the Farm hope for the best for Acuna as we wait for an update on his status. And I saw a friend of the podcast, former friend of the Padres, some bad news yesterday as well. Gabriel Arias. I don't know if you saw this. Did you ever talk to Gabriel when he was in Lake Elsinore?
A little bit. And he
hurt his ankle. He was a similar kind of a thing, trying to make a play at shortstop and goes to plant and just crumpled to the ground. And so, thoughts and prayers for the guy. We got to know him a little bit in Lake Elsinore. Seems like a real good dude. And, I was happy to see him start to make a pretty good start of a major league career. But he's going to be on the shelf for a while with that kind of an injury.
Yeah, it's tough. Back when he was in Lake Elsinore, that was the same year that him and Taddy must have got dreads the same year, because they both showed up and they both had dreads. And then, like, the next time I went up to Elsinore, a couple of weeks after that, he didn't have them anymore. And he said he gave him a headache. Like, what happened to the dreads? He's like, gives me a headache.
Because they got to pull it so tight when they braid the hair.
Right.
No, but I remember going up to Lake Elsinore, and that was when Xavier Edwards was there as well.
Yep.
And so Tatis, I never saw Tatis in the minors. But the two of those guys were trading off at shortstop. And it was interesting that you see Edwards that he was quick and twitchy and he would get to the plays. He had really quick footwork, but he would throw the ball across the diamond and you'd see a little bit of a lob. Now,
Right.
not saying that he's got a noodle arm by any means. But then you watch Gabriel Arias out there and he was like freaking Spider-Man
Yep.
with his he's tall, broad shoulders, long limbs, and an absolute cannon of an arm. So you see that, and there was so much to dream on with the defense. So I knew it would carry him far.
Yeah.
Glad to see him make it up to the majors, but hopefully this is just a bump in the road for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's played well enough to, come back from injury, depending on how long that takes, maybe make the squad out of spring training next year with the Guardians. Good kid
Yep.
too. And another one, he always, because I saw him a lot up there, and he's always said hi, and always, he doesn't speak English that great, but we always waved and just kind of acknowledged me when I was up there. So
Yeah.
we hope the best. And half of the Cleveland Guardians 20 man or 40 man is former Padres anyway. Well,
That's how it
Naylor's with
seems.
the Naylor's with the Diamondbacks now. So
Yeah, and we got a bunch of former Padres out there to keep on top of. All right, so let's take it down to El Paso, take it home here. So painting the corners, Wes Benjamin, you've been doing the paint in the corners section. I'm taking the paint in the
right.
corners this time. Wes Benjamin had the longest and best start of the week for the Chihuahuas, holding Reno to one run over 5 1/3 innings in a game El Paso would ultimately lose. We haven't talked about Wes Benjamin a whole lot, so I thought I'd
Nope.
drop a little something in here. The 31-year-old lefty has been on quite a roll over his last 5 outings, posting a 2.0 ERA with 23 strikeouts against 10 walks in 27 innings. It's been an impressive turnaround after his ERA had swollen to 8.39 by mid-May in his return from the KBO. So Wes Benjamin has a little bit of major league experience. Again, another somebody to kind of keep an eye on if the Padres are looking for reinforcement in the pitching core later this year. And then just 17 days ago, Bradgley Rodriguez walked off the mound shaking his arm, and we were all scared about this.
Yeah.
While he was working through a throwing progression, it was unclear what that might yield. Wednesday, he returned and threw a perfect inning. He topped out at 99.6 miles an hour, comfortably sitting at 98. The 21-year-old threw 1 2/3 scoreless innings with the Padres less than a month ago. So super happy to see that. He looked really good in his brief little debut with the
Yep.
major league club. They're not going to call somebody up like that, like Bradgley, to just call him up, have him pitch in a couple games, and then send him packing. No, they do that. They get that. Okay, let's give you a taste,
Right.
get the
Familiar,
first inning
comfortable.
jitters out, and then when we really need you, you'll be ready. So good to see that. And then speaking of Francis Pena, I mentioned him earlier. He wasn't the only hard-throwing reliever with a strong outing, as Francis Pena struck out 2 over a scoreless inning. The sinker slider pitcher was up to 97 miles an hour on his fastball. After a tough stretch in May, 24-year-old has not allowed a run in over 10 innings in his last 7 appearances. Batters are hitting 100 against him during the stretch. Pena landed 10 of his 19 pitches in the zone and recorded 13 strikes. So getting some swing and miss outside the zone, getting calls for strikes.
Yep.
So a couple of guys right there that are on the 40 man. So I know the bullpen's been doing a pretty good job, but there have been some cracks. Starting pitching, I feel like it's kind of a little bit tenuous,
Right.
especially with Michael King. We don't know. I heard that Yu Darvish just threw another live bullpen or whatever you call it, simulated game.
Sim game today
But
up in Elsinore.
but it's like I'm not going to believe it until he's back in a Padres uniform
Right.
in Petco Park. And Michael King, who knows? We heard he's going to be out till at least the All-Star break, but what does that mean? Is it going to be a week or two after the All-Star break or a
Right.
month or two after the All-Star break?
And then he's going to have to get ramped up. He'll probably have several. He'll probably spend some time in El Paso, making some rehab starts. Probably a few. I wouldn't be surprised if it was one or two.
Right. So in the
And
meantime, we got guys like Pena and Rodriguez, and now we got Eduardo Nunez coming up. We got some reinforcements here.
absolutely, and that's the thing. Like usually around this time of the season, as we get closer to the All Star break, the bullpen, due to the starting pitching being five and dive. A lot of the times, has been taxed, and we've lost a lot of games because of that bullpen. And it just shows small cracks. But to know that we're still kind of treading water. The big league club still kind of treading water with what they have, as banged up as they are, and the lack of production from the offense. There's plenty of reinforcements down in AAA, and there's plenty of the season left to go. I wasn't planning on. I'm kind of glad they got rained out today because I wasn't going to watch the game. I'm a little disgusted, and it's just because my whole life I've always dictated our whole mood in the house. Like, we start arguing, me and Lydia will start arguing when they start losing, and it's not good.
Well, they can't lose today.
Well, they can't lose today, but let's get onto the screws and get on out of here. This week, the Paso Chihuahuas built different, just like Clay. Clay Duncan is your truly Nolan Player of the Week. 6 games, 5 extra base hits, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, a 440 average, 444 average on base percentage, sorry, and a 348 batting average. So Clay Duncan, another one of these guys has been down there. This is his second year with the Chihuahuas. He hasn't got a cup of coffee yet, has he?
No, he hasn't. But remember when we talked to Roel Padron in the offseason, and I kind of pressed him, and I wanted somebody that was a little bit off the radar that's impressed him.
Yep.
And he said Clay Duncan, the guy does everything. So he could play shortstop, he could play center field, he could play all over the diamond. He's got a pretty good bat. He's got some pretty good speed. So somebody like, I mean, Mason McCoy's next on the list here.
Right.
But somebody like Tyler Wade and Matthew Batten, these guys that's just kind of scrappy guys that do anything the team asks of them.
And they know their role, and that's the big thing is, and he may not get a shot with the Padres, but these guys, they all these guys that come in and out of the system in the upper levels of minors, they're playing because this is what they do for a living. They're playing because there's always going to be that shot. There's going to be that the injury on the 26th man where they're the next man up, and that may not be for the Padres with Clay, but it might be with another organization, such as you see in other organizations that have left the Padres organization, where they get their cup of coffee, where they're just kind of fringe guys that don't flash, but they have a role. They come up and they get a cup of coffee. Some of them stick around for a while. Josh Van Meter, I think, stuck around with the Reds for a while. He was there on John Nolan's last broadcast there several weeks back. But, yeah. So it's good to have those guys in your organization, and every organization has them. And let's move on to the next one. That's Mason McCoy. He's been with us for a few years now, or for the organization a few years. He had a stellar week, blasting 3 home runs on his way to a 1.244 OPS. The infielder who was with the big league club until he dislocated his pinky, that's right, he dove back to first in April. Is 16 of 17 has hit in 16 of 17 games since getting fully underway with the Chihuahuas. That's right, he dove back, and it was that injury. Was it Lockridge, I think, banged himself up, or was that when Merrill banged himself up? We had multiple injuries that day, if not that week, on the big league roster that were like, holy crap, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
Yeah, where'd this black cloud come from?
Right.
Well, hopefully the clouds clear in Philadelphia, and with that comes some good mojo sprinkling in, and we start to see these guys playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder again. If they're going to go through a slump, this is the time to do it. Because I want to see these guys having fun and playing with that swagger again when we get to the end of the summer.
Absolutely. They got these the doubleheader tomorrow. I think they come home. I think
they got an off day.
Yeah, they Thursdays
4th of July against the Rangers.
Yeah, and then come in another good test is playing the Rangers. With God, who pitches for them?
DeGrom.
That's it.
Because I haven't looked at the matchups to see who's penciled in for them.
No, but it'd be good to see him on the mound pitching against us, and maybe us lighting him up. That'd be nice. But who else? Who else plays for? Boch is there. That's Boch's team.
Right. Yeah, it's TBD all weekend right now. No pitchers have been announced yet. But yeah, they're gonna provide a pretty good test.
Absolutely. So hey, before we go, make sure you guys. I'm gonna leave it in the description in the notes. The link to buy the Zamo shirt from the El Paso Chihuahuas that supports the Child Crisis Center of El Paso.
Until who doesn't love a good bullpen and a 3-run homer?
Dude, that's all they love. Until then, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at SD Donovan.
I'm at Zippy_TMS.
Rain, rain, go away. Come again some other day.